Alright, welcome back. This is What If Deku was Shirou Emiya Part 6. And before we get started, just gotta say, thank you guys for all the love you've been showing this series so far. I actually didn't expect it to get, as much love and praise as it is. It really means a lot to me, and I thank you guys so much for this. But without any further ado, let's get into it. Where we last left off, it was right before the sports festival, and Tosaka was heading to her house. So, on her way to her house, she sees there's this girl over there waiting for her right outside her door. As she gets closer, she tells Archer to, do a parameter sweep and see if there's any servants nearby. Archer does, and he reports that there's none. So Tosaka gets up closer and she sees that it's Sakura Mato. And she is honestly really surprised about this, and she's asking Sakura, why is she here? And Sakura, she's basically like, well, I was wanting to ask you, if we can be sisters again. And Tosaka looks shocked. She's like, even after father gave you away to the Matos, you still consider me your family after everything you've been through? Dealing with Shinji, that old man, that creep, the death of our uncle? And she's like, She's like, no matter what happened, it's not changing the biological fact that we're sisters. And Tosaka, she's like, well, I don't see why we can't try to be. And Tosaka's actually holding back tears a bit because she's happy. All she's really wanted was her sister back, but she never knew how to go about it. And so, Tosaka says, well, I haven't really been staying here, but, the place I have been staying has enough room, and I'm sure that Emiya wouldn't mind you staying there either. And she's like, who's Emiya? And she's like, oh, he's a friend of mine. And Sakura's like, is he your boyfriend? And Tosaka's face turns red, and she says, no, it's nothing like that. But when Sakura said that, all she could really hear was Deku basically saying that he liked her and not to let anything happen to her. And Sakura's like, okay. So Ren goes up there, she grabs the stuff she needs, and she heads out. And Archer, he's keeping an eye on Sakura because he can't help but having this uneasy feeling in him. And it's just gnawing away at her. But, well, not her, but him. But it's also raising Rin up a bit, and the alarm, like, she can't help but sense something's following them. And it's something that has to be super skilled as to not be noticed. And, Archer, he's looking all over. He feels like there's something there, but he can't see anything. He can't see nothing concrete. So they have this feeling of unease all the way back until they get to Emiya's place. And, Deku, he opens the door. He's like, oh, hey, welcome back, Tosaka. And he looks and he's like, who's your friend here? And Rin says that, this is my sister, Sakura. And Ilya hears sister. She pops her head around and runs over there, and she sees Sakura. And Ilya's getting a familiar vibe off Sakura. She can't really pinpoint what it is, but there's something about her that feels eerily similar. And, I'm going to say that, she's like, oh, so is this going to be a sibling thing? And Sakura looks shocked. She's like, what do you mean? And Ilya, before Deku can even say anything, she's like, I'm Emiya's big sister, Ilya. And Sakura, she's shocked. She's just like, oh, so you were staying with your boyfriend and his sister. And Deku's just like, boyfriend? And his face goes red because even though he's like Archer, he's still just a teenage guy with raging hormones. And Tozak is just like, I said we're not dating. And her face is all flustered as well, and Ilya and Sakura is just laughing at him. And then Archer says, get down, and he pushes like Rin and Sakura down, and Deku takes Ilya and hits the ground, and right a split second too late, and they would have been shot in the head. Archer says, it looks like it's a sniper. And they're like, okay, is it a spirit or is it, someone using the card? They can't tell. But, they see a figure in like body armor, a red scarf that's hiding his face. And, they're running over there. Deku and Archer is to try and capture him, and they're using their swords to spew out at him to just try and see his face, to see who he is. And Archer basically tells him this has to be assassin. And so, he spins around and goes all out to try and catch him. And, Assassin just drops. And Archer tells Deku not to go after him like that. Deku doesn't really listen. He jumps down and he's ready for a fight. But then, he gets down there on the ground. He doesn't see anything. And then he just feels the gun to the back of his head. And he realizes he just made a rookie mistake. And, he's like, so, I'm guessing you're assassin then, right? And the man says, that's right. So, and he orders Deku to turn around, let him see his face. And so Deku, he has to comply because he has a gun to his head and he knows he's not going to get a sword out and stab him and disarm him before that man can pull the trigger. And he knows he's a heroic spirit, so he's not really going to underestimate his ability to kill someone. And he turns around and he's looking straight at the assassin. Then assassin lowers his gun. And Deku can hear him starting to cry. And, Deku, he's like, why are you crying? And that's when Assassin pulls down the scarf from over his face and reveals that it's Kiritsugu Emiya. And Deku's eyes just go wide. He says, "Dad?" And, you know, Kiritsugu's at a loss for words. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's like, "How did you..." He's like, "Why are you in the Grail War? What happened to you? Why are you fighting like this?" And Deku's trying to yell, and Archer hears it, and he rushes down there now, and he's on the ground, and he sees the man's face, and he's in shock just as much. And Kiritsugu, he doesn't recognize, Archer Deku. So he points his gun at him and he says, "Dad." And Kiritsugu puts two and two together, seeing the burnt skin of Archer, the white hair, seeing as how it's so similar to his, and he's like, no, this can't be. And, he's like, "Why are you a heroic spirit as well?" And they tell him it's, it happened by following his ideals. And, hearing that, it destroys Kiritsugu. He's like, his ideals is what's going to set him forth to being a guardian for the rest of eternity. He won't be able to rest in peace, and he'll have to keep killing and be bound to a master for all time, just being a slave. He's like, he rescued his life so he wouldn't end up like that, so he wouldn't die for nothing for his mistake. But by saving his life, he condemned him to a different hell. And he's just saying he's so sorry. He didn't mean for that to happen. He never meant for this to go this way. But then he pulls his gun, and he's telling them, "I've been ordered by a command spell to kill you. I won't be able to hold back." As his body starts moving on its own, but with Archer and Deku there, they eventually push Kiritsugu back. And since Deku knows the acceleration, the same way Kiritsugu does, and he has mastered it thanks to Archer's training, they're a pretty even match for Kiritsugu. So the master orders him to fall back, and right as soon as he's going, Deku's like, "Wait, who is your master?" And all Kiritsugu says is Mado. And Deku and Archer are kind of pissed to hear that name. Like, Mado is controlling their father. Sent him to try and kill his own sons. What type of sick fuck would ever try to do that? And they're out for blood now. They go back to the house, and they ask Rin, "What is Sakura's last name?" And Archer, he already knows it, and he's like, "Save your breath, her last name is Mado." And Deku, he pulls out, one of the swords, and he aims it straight for Sakura's throat. And Rin aims a spell right at Deku's head, and she's like, "You need to back off." And that's when Archer steps in, saying that, "Really? Because the Mado servant almost killed us." And after hearing that, Rin looks at Sakura, and Sakura, she's crying. She's like, "I had no idea that, And she's like, He's like, I don't have a servant, I swear. And Deku can tell she's not lying, but he can also tell that she's still hiding something. And, he's wanting to know, why did she go to Tosaka? What is she planning? What is it that she's hiding from them? And he wants the truth, and he wants it now, or he will slit her throat to keep his family and the rest of them safe. And hearing that, Archer basically tells Deku, like, you're following those ideals? And Deku, he realizes he said that without really even thinking about it. But he looks back at Archer and he's like, I have to now. And Archer nods in agreement. He's like, is this truly your desire this time? Will you be able to live with the consequences and sins that come from wanting to be a hero of justice? And Deku says yes. It is his own desire now. And he'll be able to live with the consequences no matter what happens. And Sakura basically tells him that she ran away. She got tired of the experiments being done on her. She got tired of being assaulted and abused. She just wanted to have a family, a normal family, and a normal life for a change. To leave all that magecraft behind and just be done with it. And, Deku's like, he can tell she's not lying. And he doesn't really sense that she's hiding anything else from him anymore. So he says, okay. And so, doing that, they start cleaning everything up, and Tosaka's tending to Deku in private, and she's really laying into him like, how were you really going to kill her? Deku stays silent. She's like, I don't blame you. You're doing what's best for everybody. I'm the one that's just trying to look out for myself and hold on to the hope that I could have a family again. And she said her father's dead, and so is her mother. Sakura's the last family that she has, but they've never really been like real sisters since they were kids. And she's like, all the bad things her dad did, causing the Holy Grail War, the Grail that went out of control, everything like that. She's just like, it's too much. She's like, she doesn't know how Deku can keep sacrificing everything for the betterment of people and keep moving forward. But that's not a strength that she has. And she starts crying, and Deku, he spins around there and he holds her. And he consoles her. And he's like, you have a strength that I don't have. And she's like, what? Crying? And he's like, no. Believing in the good in people. And she's actually a bit stunned, and he was like, maybe you can teach me how. And Tosaka, she smiles and she says, I'm a pretty tough teacher. And they stand there for a bit. Deku's looking into her eyes and she's looking into his. And then Deku leans forward a bit and he kisses her. And she, after the kiss, her eyes just go wide. Her face turns all red, and she's just like freaking out a bit. And Deku, he's like, what was I too forward? Did you not want to? If so, I'm sorry. She's like, oh no, it's fine. She's like, truth be told, I've never been good with putting out my true feelings. And the truth is, I really like you, and I'd be sad if anything did happen to you. So, be safe out there, and don't get yourself killed, Emiya. And she hugs him. And Deku's like, I promise. And, night comes. Everybody goes to sleep. They wake up. And Deku's going to school. He runs into Ida along the way. And, Deku, he's like talking to Ida. He's being friendlier, and Ida's like, something good must have happened to you last night. And Deku's like, oh, what do you mean? He's like, you just seem happier and, a bit more full of yourself. And Deku's like, a lot can change overnight. And that's all he says on the matter. And he's trying to pry into it because that's his best friend, And, all the way up until the sports festival, everything goes pretty normally around there. Deku and Rin are getting closer and closer by the day. They're actually dating now. And, she's showing Deku to look at the good in people. Sakura and Ilya are bonding as sisters. Archer's just kind of training with Deku and teaching him about more strategy and things that he can do to increase himself. And, it's the day of the sports festival. And Rin tells him that, her, Sakura, and Ilya will be there to watch him. They already bought their tickets. And she's like, even Archer's going to be coming. And Deku's like, what's Archer going to be wearing? And he steps out in a suit. He's like, what, too formal? And he's like, oh no, that's actually perfect for you. And he's like, alright. So, Deku heads off to school. And, Tosaka, she's blowing off school for the day. She doesn't care. It's her boyfriend's sports festival. So, she's going. And, they're over there, and, Deku, he's getting changed into his UA there, and, he's actually hearing Bakugo out there being loud, saying, oh, what? He's like, I'm going to become the number one in the sports festival, you half and half bastard. And Todoroki, he's arguing with him, saying, sorry, but that's not going to happen. And, he walks out there, and he's like, yo, what is wrong with you two? He's like, do you two have to act like animals? And Bakugo gets right up in Deku's face, saying, oh, look, it's the quirkless wannabe. What? You think you could stand with us? And Deku takes that as a challenge, and he's like, stand with you? I'm pretty sure I could surpass you. Both of you. And he's like, how about this? I'm declaring war on everyone here. With all your quirks and abilities, I'll be number one in the sports festival this year. And Ida's actually pretty surprised at Deku's straight up declaration of war. And he asks Deku, and Deku's like, yeah, I want to compete with you too, Ida. He's like, we're best friends, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to compete with each other on a friendly front. And Ida hears that, and he's like, That's right. But him and Ida make a condition that if there's a team battle, those two will team up and help each other get past it so they could have a chance to fight each other in the finals. And they agree. So, sports festival starts and it's a race. And Deku's actually really fast in this one. He's fast enough to pass a car just running along beside it, so he's actually outrunning everyone with just pure speed. And then the robot happens. Deku, he sees the little ones, and he's not really gonna worry about them. He's just dodging them at this point, because it's taking a lot out of him to focus on acceleration. Because Deku's he's wanting to get this done as fast as possible. But then he sees the giant robot, and, he notices that it's moving really slow, and he's like, oh, that's right, I'm just going fast. He speeds by it without even a problem. And everyone's noticing that Deku, he's just running past everything. So everyone's just thinking he has a speed quirk, and Aizawa actually comes on saying, no, he's actually quirkless. And everyone is shocked that he's able to move that fast while being quirkless. And Tosaka and Ilya just going crazy cheering for him. And he notices that there's 3 people over there that he's never really seen before. And they seem to be really close to Deku. So he walks over there and tries to have a chat with them. And he sits down beside Archer. And Archer looks at him and he's like, well, hello, are you a teacher here? And All Might said, oh, yes, I am. And he's like, actually, I do teach Emiya from time to time. And, he's like, he doesn't really seem to have any friends except for a boy named Tenya Ida in our class. And he's actually very cold-hearted to everybody. And Archer's just like, yeah, that's his MO. After all, he doesn't have a father or a mother anymore. And he just has his sister over here and his girlfriend. And he's just like, oh, no wonder he's so cold-hearted. And Archer, he's just like, He's like, no, he's not cold-hearted at all, really. He's just a bit emotionally inept. And All Might, he's actually glad to hear that. He's like, so he's still kind. And Archer, he's actually going to go out on a limb and just bullshit here. He's like, oh yeah, I was one of his teachers overseas. I had to come and see him in person again. And All Might, he's actually believing Archer, and he's just like, oh really, how was he overseas? And he was like, pretty much how he's acting now. Although he didn't show out as much, so I guess that's different. But he worked really hard. And All Might says, what did you teach him actually? And Archer says, philosophy. I was his philosophy teacher. And, he asks, what's your name? And he's like, oh, my name's Archer. And he's like, okay. And he's like, it's a foreign name. And All Might's like, okay. Yeah, he's like, where at overseas? And he's like, Archer says England. And All Might, I'm gonna say he's never been to England, so he's just like, oh, okay, I've never been over there, so I wouldn't really know. And Archer's just like, man, this guy will buy anything. And so, Deku, he gets to the part where there's mines, and he's just like, okay. He's able to see the dirt's been slightly disturbed in certain areas. So he just runs along a path across from there, and he sees that was the last obstacle, and he finishes the race way before anybody else does. So he's just like, alright, guess now I got a chance to recover. And so he does. He's catching his breath, he's recovering. And, you know, second place is tied to Bakugo and Todoroki. And they see Deku's just there chilling. He's like laying on the ground, catching a few Z's. And, you know, he hears Bakugo's loud mouth. He wakes up, gets back up on his feet, and he's like, what took you guys so long? I was able to catch a nap for like 15 minutes. And Bakugo's just like, this motherfucker. And Todoroki's just pissed. Like, he's just like, how did he get past all the obstacles so quickly? And they're thinking, there is no way this guy is just quirkless. And, you know, he sees Tosaka, Ilya, and Archer up there. He sees that they're talking with this skinny, blonde-haired guy in a suit. And he's thinking, he's seen that suit somewhere before. And he's like, no, wait, that's All Might's suit. And he's just like, wait a minute. Is that guy All Might? And he's just like, I've got to ask him about this. And, you know, All Might sees that Emiya's looking straight up at All Might, and he's like, well, it looks like your students noticed you up here. You gonna wave and say hi? And All Might looks down, and Deku's just looking right at him. And he mouths something to All Might. He's just like, he mouths, hi, All Might. All Might sees that, and his eyes just widen. And, you know, I'm going to say that, you know, he pretends his phone is on vibrate and it's ringing. And he's like, oh, I have a phone call I have to take. Please, excuse me. And he rushes out of there. And he's just like, how could he know? And so, you know, everybody else finishes the same way they did in canon. And so, you know, it's time for the cavalry battle, and, you know, Midnight says that the first place winner has a 10 million point value on his head. And everyone stares daggers at Deku. And unlike in canon, Deku's ready for it. He's like, bring it on. Ida walks up to him and he says, well, is it just me and you? And Hatsumi actually rushes over there and she's like, can I be on your guys' team, please? I have support items that could probably help us. And Deku's realizing that, and he's just like, you know? He's like, could it help us traveling at high speeds? And, you know, like, yes. She says it can even help them with jumping high. And Deku's like, that's perfect. Welcome to the team. And Uraraka, you know, she's not about to be partnering up with Deku. After Deku, like, straight up just was mean to her. So that's not happening. So on the cavalry battle, Deku, you know, they're just speeding past everyone and grabbing headbands as they go. And whenever somebody comes at them, Deku and Ida are the two horses, and their speed is comparable when Deku's holding back. So Hatsumi's the one that's just grabbing everything and helping them make those sharp last-minute turns with her gear. So they don't even get touched, but they steal a lot of headbands. So, and I'm going to say everybody else really just places the same way they do. So, that's that. But anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it off for today. And the reason why is because the fights, I have a lot in mind for that. And if I were to add them into this video, it would be well over like an hour and a half. So, that's it. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up, comment if you have an opinion, and subscribe. See you guys later.